Hi everyone, I'm going to go through how to do the bonus problem set that is now up in Canvas. This is also, I'm going to subtitle this your first QMD file or your first Quarto document, because hopefully that's how you will do this, is in a QMD file. It's definitely the best way. It's the most up-to-date way. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to start by going into Canvas and just briefly making sure you know where to find this. So if you have the modules closed down so that they're easy to get through, the fifth module down is the problem sets. And there are two things here. There's a place to submit this all when you're done, and then there's the bonus problem set instructions. I'm going to open those in a new window so that I can come back to the submission thing. So the bonus problem set instructions. So this is supposed to be a very basic assignment that's going to do one thing in a big way, which is getting your first Quarto presentation, or actually Quarto document, open, and then we're going to type one thing that's just going to be typewritten. It's just going to be a header, and then we're going to do 2 lines of code that are going to just print. They're going to create an object and then print it to the screen. So very simple file, and then we'll render it, which will turn it into an HTML file or possibly a PDF file. Are the ways that we're going to do it. We're going to do the HTML file. You would do HTML or PDF. So it's very important to do things in order exactly as instructed, or you will get different results. And in some cases, if you do things out of order, the result will be that it just won't work. If you type them slightly wrong and they're not code, then you'll just get something that's different from my result. If you type them wrong and they're code, it may be you have an error that doesn't work. So precision and doing things in order are really important, especially at this very basic stage. If you learn them now, it'll serve you well. So the first thing we're going to do is go to RStudio or Posit Cloud and open a new Quarto document, or create a new Quarto document file. It's very similar. It's going to look the same way in both RStudio and Posit Cloud. If you have your project open, you'll see the same file menu. You'll see the same menus across the top of the screen, and the far left one will be the file menu. I'm going to go ahead and go over there and actually do this. So I'm going to come to the file menu up here. I'm going to go new file, and I specifically want for this a Quarto document. So Quarto document, and there's a new screen. There are directions. I'm going to go back to the directions to make sure I do it exactly according to the directions. So on the next screen, the first thing that I say is enter the title as bonus problem set and the author as you. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to enter the title right here. It's actually in blue. It's bolded. We're already there to start with. So I'm going bonus problem set, and then down here is the author. It says optional. I'm going to go ahead and enter my name, and then I'm going to come back over here and see what I do next. So it says the radio button next to HTML should be filled in. So these little dots with a circle that you can fill in, but you can only fill in one at a time, are called radio buttons. Sometimes you see check boxes, and usually if there are check boxes, you can check multiple, and they're called check boxes. I'm not sure why these are called radio buttons, but they're distinct from check boxes in that you can only do one at a time. And this time we're going to choose HTML. You may choose PDF, but for many of you that won't work without installing some other stuff. And I think we're all tired of installing new things. We've already installed 3 new things, at least. Some of the Mac people had to install 4. So let's go with HTML, because you can always print that to a PDF later if you want to. You can choose Word and it'll work fine, but you can't turn a Word document into me. You have to turn it in either HTML or PDF. So it is selected HTML. If I wanted to select PDF, I could do this. If I wanted to select Word, I could do this, but I'm gonna leave HTML with the blue inside the circle. You don't need to mess with any of this with one exception. So first of all, your engine should be knitter. If it pops up and it's got something else filled in, then change it to knitter, but it should default to this, and if it does, don't mess with it. That's why I didn't put anything in there. The editor should be blank, because if it's filled in, you're going to use the visual markdown editor. We don't want to do that because you're actually going to type some code. So leave that alone unless it's filled in. Make sure it's blank. So then I'm going to hit create. And when I hit create, it created my file. So this is my Quarto Markdown document. And it is ready to go. You'll see that it filled in the top 3 lines. Bonus problem set as the title, me as the author, and HTML as the format. So in the next section, I tell you to leave that alone. Don't mess with that. If you mess with it and you don't know what you're doing, you'll just break things. Even if you do know what you're doing, you will probably break things the first few times you try it. So for now, don't ever touch that. But I do want to delete all of this stuff. So all of this stuff will happen anytime you open a new Quarto document. It's just directions on how to use it. So it's good. It's good for it to be there. But for our purposes today, we want it just out of the way. So we're starting with a blank canvas. And the first thing I want you to do on that blank canvas before you do anything else, so before you do number 8, I want you to do number 7, which is type 2 hashtags or pound signs, a space, and then this is my bonus problem set. And if you do that, then what it's going to do is create a heading of this is my bonus problem set when this prints out. That's what the 2 hashtags do. They're a second level heading. If I did just one hashtag, it would be a really big heading. After you type a line, I didn't specifically put it, but hit enter or return to go to the next line. And just to keep things neat, I'm going to add an extra line. You don't have to. But I added an extra line just to keep things neat. I didn't tell you you had to, so you don't have to. But the next thing we want to do is create a new code chunk. A code chunk just means a place that R is going to run actual R code. So all the stuff out here that's not in a code chunk just gets typed to the screen, except it will get whatever formatting we had, so that the hashtags give it some formatting. But this will just pop up as text. But whatever goes in the code chunk, and the code chunks look like this. So you can create one by typing it. Those 3 backwards apostrophes that on a Windows computer are to the left of the 1 on your keyboard, and then an R inside the squirrely curly brackets. You can do that. You can do it the way I did, which is to type it. But the much easier way on Windows is you type Control-Alt-I, and that's you hold down the Control, hold down the Alt, and then hit the I, and it will pop up. On Mac, you use Command-Option-I. On Linux, it will depend on your keyboard. On mine, it's Control-Alt-I. If you have a Mac keyboard, you'd probably have to use the Mac method. But I am in the background right now hitting Control-Alt-I. So I've hit Control-Alt-I and it popped up, and you see my cursor automatically, when I do it that way, pops up inside the code chunk, which means anything that I type at this point has to be code so that it will work properly, because if I type something in there that's not our code, it's going to give an error. So what R code do I want to type inside this code chunk? We're only going to type 2 lines. The first line is going to do this. Create an object named X, assign the value POLS 3316 using the assignment operator which is the less than sign or left facing arrow and the hyphen. So I've shown you that before, but I did a capital X, and then so the capital X is to create the object. The less than sign and the hyphen, and there shouldn't be a space between the less than and the hyphen, or else it will not work. And then I want the value that I'm going to assign is POLS 3316, and because it's a series of characters, I want it to be exact. I'm putting it in quotation marks, so instead of, it won't assign a series, it won't do anything weird, it won't assign a null value, and it won't return an error. It knows that I want it to actually put exactly that, which is what quote marks are actually for. So it works just the way it really should. I have to hit return to go to a new line, and the next step that I want to do on that new line is I want to make X print to my document by typing X. So I said, still inside the code chunk, on the next line, make X print to your document by typing X. And that's all I'm going to do. And because this was an uppercase X, this has to be an uppercase X also. If I had named this lowercase x, I'd have to name this lowercase because it's case sensitive. So now I'm to the point, I'm actually done with everything except saving and rendering. So now I'm going to go to the File menu again, and I'm going to use the Save As option. So I'm back up here to the File menu. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, it says File. I come down to Save As, and I've got to give this a name, and I gave you a format for naming it. This isn't super important, but it's helpful in me keeping track of your files. I said bonus, problem set, last name, first name. I did this in an easy to read format that's called snake case, where you capitalize the words and then you put underscores between them. Avoid using spaces in words. It works sometimes, but not always. Sometimes it will throw an error. So bonus, problem set, last name, first name, and hit save. And if you happen to see the flickering, you can rewind if you didn't. This was not here before. It is here now. It is in the demonstration project directory. So assuming you know where you loaded your demonstration project, you can find this file. And the next step is so you pay attention to what folder you created it in so you can find it later. The next step is to render the document. So there's a tutorial with pictures and instructions, but I'm also going to show you how to do it. Rendering the document, if everything was done right and the code is correct, is really easy. There's a button up here that says render. You click render, and if you watch over here, it does its thing. It pops up in the viewer. If you are using a Mac or Linux computer, it will pop up in a web browser. I'm using a Windows computer right now, and it pops up in the viewer. I have my Linux computer set up where it also pops up in the viewer, but I had to actually set a setting. You can do that in Mac too if you want to. I prefer it this way. Some people like it to pop up in the web browser. So before, we had the get-ignore, we had the R history, we had this thing, we had the README, and we had the QMD. When I clicked render, it created the HTML file and these files. The files are just, there's actually not anything really in there, but if there were any images in the document or things like that, they'd be stored there. But this is the HTML file. So what do I say to do next? I say, if you're working in Posit Cloud, you have an extra step. You have to export the file to your computer, and I give directions for that. But the next step is to get that file into the bonus project assignment in Canvas. And it is a matter of coming here to the bonus problem set and submitting. And so let's see. I already did this once, so I need to do a new attempt. And I'm going to choose a file. I'm going to pretend that I didn't actually come in. I kept track of, I know where my RStudio projects are. They're in my documents. They're all in one place. I know where this is. It's named Demonstration Semester Project, and there's that HTML file. Because when I created things, I kept track of where I created them. It makes life much simpler than just throwing everything on the desktop or in downloads. So I'm done with that, submitted the assignment, and now I get to go grade my assignment. And at this point, you are done as well, except for making this decision about whether you need extra time on the assignment. So that is it. Thank you for listening, and hopefully that clarifies how to get started opening and rendering your first file.